Thanks so much everyone for watching. We've got an epic lineup tonight of speakers. We've got an awesome panel here. Amazing group of functional doctors, technology, activists for a leap forward in medicine.
This is a great gathering.
You know, our goal is to make it easy for practitioners to learn in community.
There's a lot of community happening tonight. I want to say welcome to all of the communities that are watching at home. This ecosystem that is being set up by the meetup groups, we believe will be the future ecosystem of this evolved primary care network that we are looking to develop, and it all revolves around you. There's an exponential potential to the future of medicine. This is an allopathic conversion machine that we have just created. And it has exponential potential because it can be seen by 1 billion people at no extra cost. That's the beauty of the internet.
Welcome to the Functional Forum. Thanks for joining us in the charge to accelerate the evolution of medicine. Please welcome your host, James Maskell.
Hello and welcome to the January Functional Forum, the evolution of pediatrics. In this episode, we're going to look how medicine is starting to adapt and evolve towards the chronic pediatric illnesses that are rife in this country. We are going to go across the country, but we're going to start in El Dorado Hills, California, to meet with two sister pediatricians, Dr. Nicole Shorrock and Dr. Katie Long, to find out about their hospital-based pediatric practice. Take it away. Tell us about the practice model that you run here, Doc.
So I think we have an uncommon model for functional medicine, and I think about it when I transitioned from conventional to functional medicine as more of a remodel, maybe not so much new construction. I was really grounded and rooted in the hospital system that I worked with, and so we basically continued my previous contract with the hospital and just did a facelift and changed the clinic to provide functional care. So we are part of a multi-specialty group where we contract with the hospital, and we are salaried physicians. The benefit to that is that we take all insurances, including Medi-Cal. About 30% of our population has Medi-Cal. So we can reach a broader community irregardless of their financial means. And that's pretty important to us. As we work through the functional medicine, because a motivated family, you really want to be able to reach the full variety of that. And the downside, I think, to our current model is that we don't have full creative license. You know, we really have to work with the system that we're working with, and that means a lot of communication, a lot of education. What is functional medicine? We're still working on that answer with our administration, and it's evolving, working on why do we need a nutritionist? What is a health coach? Why do we need a health coach? But it's worked really well for us, and it's a continuing evolution.
Are you ever like the second opinion pediatrician? And what are the types of issues that you feel like people want a second opinion on now?
We are often the second, third, fourth, fifth opinion doctors.
Yes, I see that a lot. And the way our practice is set up currently, I'm probably seeing more of the new patients just simply by the fact that Nikki was established for longer and, of course, was full until I came on. So we're working on that. But I would say that most of the families that are coming to us have children that have chronic issues, symptoms that have been present for months, but more often years. And you can kind of separate them into two categories where you'll see the child was either already went down the conventional path and was labeled to have a certain disease diagnosis, and then oftentimes after disease diagnosis comes a recommended pharmaceutical treatment. ADHD would be a prime example of that, where we have a lot of children being diagnosed with ADHD and recommended stimulants. And a lot of the parents that we are attracting to our clinic realize that the stimulants aren't addressing the underlying causes of the symptoms. And so they either don't want to try them, or they have tried them and there were adverse effects that they weren't comfortable with continuing on a long-term basis. So that's one category. The other category that I see are children that have been down that conventional path as well, maybe seen multiple specialists, had a variety of procedures, and get labeled as not having a disease. And I think gastrointestinal disorders are probably a good example of that. Kids that have had long-term recurrent abdominal pain or chronic diarrhea, and they'll see GI, they'll get endoscopies, even biopsies, and be told well, it's not ulcerative colitis, it's not Crohn's disease, it's not celiac disease. And the families leave with this stamp of a clean bill of health. You know, there are no changes you need to make is an often one that they're told. And they have this overwhelming feeling of, well, then what is it? Why does my child not feel well? And I think we do a great job at being able to help the family pick up from that point and turn that into a positive event. We're very happy to know that there isn't Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis or celiac disease present. Here are the other things that may be contributing to these symptoms. Let's start working with addressing those. Those are probably the two main categories that we're seeing. And so that list of chronic diseases, all of the A's that Dr. Chirac mentioned, autism, asthma, ADHD, atopy, allergy and atopy, autoimmunity is huge, PANDAS. We're seeing a lot of patients with pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disease associated with strep. I'm really proud of myself I was able to do that. And you know, we're kind of forging the road with regards to that one. But
what do you think it says about the way that you're practicing that there's just such a demand for it today?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. You know, it's what the community wants. And we couldn't possibly keep up with it. You know, it's overwhelming.
Tell me about the interaction with other pediatricians. Like, have other pediatricians evolved to some of the, or have they connected to any of these ideas, or how does your interaction with them changed over the last 10 years?
That's a tricky question for us. You know, it's because the response has been, you know, my experience with functional medicine was just so incredibly powerful, watching my patients heal and recover in ways that I didn't really believe was possible. And I felt like practicing functional medicine, I was healing my patients for the first time. And so when you bring that to your colleagues, you expect kind of like excitement and, you know, wide open arms. And honestly, that really wasn't the response with some of the more seasoned pediatricians. I think even, I would say, defensive and sometimes aggressive were more of the responses that we've encountered. And it has been difficult. It's forced me to really think about why I went into medicine in the first place. Like, I didn't go into medicine to win a popularity contest or to be everybody's friend. I went into medicine to be in service of my patients' well-being. And the experience of evolving from conventional to functional medicine has really forced me to hold that sacred.
I think on the converse of that also, because we've both had that experience and kind of coming into functional medicine more recently, I would say that some of the younger pediatricians, residents, we've worked with medical students who are just in awe of what we're doing and have, you know, said that it's changing their path and what they plan to do. And so I think, you know, when you catch people early or, you know, in a moment where they're more open and looking for something different and realizing that there are some areas that the system needs improvement and that people need to be, our plans for making them well just really need to change, and that functional approach is really beneficial for that. But I was able to do a grand rounds at our local teaching hospital, and even in an academic setting, we were both amazed at how well it was received. You know, offers at the end, please come start teaching our Friday didactics. Can you do a functional medicine series? People should know about this.
Yes, and we've started a functional medicine CME series at our own local hospital. So we are the only functional physicians in our current hospital setting as part of our medical staff. And it's been received really well. The attendance is actually higher than any other CME program. So there's definitely a shift that is happening.
Do you think it's just really it's a generational thing where the younger doctors and medical students are seeing the new, that just are seeing the diseases that are walking in and want more relevant tools?
I do think that it appears that way on the outside, and trying to understand why the more seasoned physicians aren't really diving in is a difficult answer. I think it varies depending on the person, but I think sometimes it can be overwhelming because it really is a shift in thinking about the body and how the body works.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that can be difficult for the doctor to take on, especially when they feel like they need to see 20 or 30 patients a day and they've got to keep running, on this treadmill to keep up. How can I possibly master functional medicine and actually provide that service? I think sometimes that's a roadblock.
Yeah. So let's jump into the clinical stuff now. What would you say are some of the diseases in which you treat exactly the same way that you do from your pediatric training for either of you both?
Yeah, so we will rely on our conventional pediatric training mostly in the setting of acute illnesses, I would say. We're appreciative of that for being able to recognize when children are in a crisis situation and need more acute care.
Yeah, we'll use albuterol if they're having an asthma attack, or IV fluids if they're dehydrated, and we really have a good sense on when those are necessary and when this is just kind of needs to run its course.
And so what would you say is the kind of conditions where you take a completely different approach than other pediatricians?
So my functional training has really revolutionized my approach to any chronic illness, really. The concept of being able to uncover underlying causes and then treat and address those root causes to reverse and eliminate disease wasn't something that I really left my residency feeling like it was possible. So that's, I think, where most of the change is seen is with chronic illness.
Yeah, and I think I've been practicing pediatrics for 17 years, and in the last 17 years there's been a huge shift in the patient population. We're seeing much more chronic disease, obesity, asthma, allergies, autism, mood disorders, ADHD, tons of intestinal disorders, and this was not something that was part of my training back in the long time ago. So it's new, and we have to evolve with that, right? And the functional scaffolding really helps us to have a mechanism to teach us on how to address that and how to work through it.
Absolutely. Katie, for you, how much easier has it been compared to your colleagues to be able to go down this path with the agreement of your sister and being able to work with her every day and learn from her?
So I am beyond fortunate to be able to have such a close role model in, of course, my functional journey. And not only my sister, but Dr. Burke and Dr. Holthouse and Dr. Barley, who we're very close to in this area, also have from the beginning just met me with open arms. And I think having that sense of community and having people to look up to and know their experience, that they've done it, they help to make my path a little less bumpy. All of the things that you have to navigate, and it was very overwhelming, leaving residency to do something that I had very little training on during my residency other than an elective month that I did with Nikki. And in fact, I thought I was going to do pediatric ICU or pediatric emergency medicine. And so making that shift towards primary care really happened after experiencing that with her for a month and realizing that my training, I felt that the way that you really heal and fix people was in those acute settings, those crisis situations. You come in with a trauma and we put you back together, and that felt very rewarding to me. And with shadowing in a functional medicine practice, I realized there's children coming in with autism and getting put back together. And that's really rewarding when you see something that would be affecting them for the remainder of their life. And you're able to turn it around not only for that child, but for that family. That is basically when I was stolen into the field of functional medicine.
Stole her.
Have you had other people have that same experience working with you? Like where people
medical students, yes, we've been working with medical students, and they often leave hungry for more. And at this point, there really isn't more, in our area for them. So we'll see how that evolves. But definitely I think it resonates, when you learn something that you know is true and it just makes sense. Yeah. There's a strong resonance with that, and they know it. They know it. They also get, when they're here for a longer period of time, we teach residents for about a 4-month period of time. So they see the follow-up, they see the changes, they see these recoveries that they didn't know were even possible.
is there a protocol that you guys have developed for a common issue that you could share on this thing for one particular issue where you found a new way of doing it that you think is superior that would help other pediatricians start the journey?
Yeah, we don't really have protocols because every patient is unique, but we always start with the gut. And so I would say that if there was a protocol that we have, most chronic inflammatory conditions involve the intestines at some level. And so we rely on our 5R teaching through functional medicine. IBS, recurrent abdominal pain, constipation, those symptoms are kind of low-hanging fruit for us. It's like, yes, we've got this, you know. And we'll do simple assessments. It doesn't need to break the bank. Sometimes, depending on where the family is, if they're just ready to run, we will just run with it. We don't really even need to collect objective data. Sometimes we need to show the family what's happening with the blood test or stool test before we really kind of dive into the treatment. But I know you could speak about some of the things that we do for something like that.
Yeah, protocol-wise, I agree with you that there isn't so much a protocol with personalized medicine, of course, but along the line of 5R, there's a lot of kids with underlying food sensitivities that haven't been addressed. So starting with a great elimination diet, helping the family to really turn their nutrition over. Our dietitian is great with that. Teaching them to have a healthy relationship with food is something that our dietitian really does a great job with. You know, we'll tell people we need to eliminate this or be more careful with that. And sometimes if you focus on that too much, you can create some fearful thinking around food. And I think our dietitian does a great job with meeting families where they're at and teaching them how to really use nutrition to nourish their children. Along those lines of a protocol to healing, something that we focus on a lot is strengthening the parasympathetic nervous system, getting out of fight or flight and into that rest and digest. We explain those concepts to the children, and children are very receptive when they understand why they're doing breathing exercises, or that this heart math app might be actually helping to keep their intestines moving, so that their constipation isn't as problematic or something like that.
I think it's also really helpful to show them like on their own bodies. Like, here's an example of what's happening in your body. Let's look at your tongue. Mom, take a picture of the tongue. Do you see that coating on the tongue? That's not optimal. Or what about the nails? What are all those white spots? You know, that tells us that we don't have enough minerals and we're not absorbing our minerals well, or we don't have enough of them in the diet. Vagus nerve tone, you know, the simple tongue depressor to see what the gag reflex is. That's powerful, because if a child has a weakened gag reflex, we know that their vagus tone is low. We know that their digestion is going to be weak. We know that their parasympathetic system is weak. And we can give them exercises and say, come back in 4 weeks. We'll recheck that vagus tone. We'll see how you're doing.
That's awesome. And on that, so now you have a medical plan where the parents are involved, right? Where people actually have to do stuff at home. Mm-hmm. How have do you have a protocol or a structure that's worked for you to engage the patients into actually adapting to these new behaviors?
Yes, we do. I think one of the things that we've realized as we've been working with our patients is that the community that the patient has is really the most important part to being successful with our treatment plan. So we are focused on building that supportive, truly supportive community for our families. A lot of times when we're asking them to make lifestyle changes, this is completely foreign to them. You know, even their parents or the grandparents of the child who grew up in the 50s or 60s, it's standard American diet, right? And so when our mothers are coming home and trying to make those changes, we need to be kind of their first level of community for them. And it involves kind of a sense of positive mothering, where we really are like their cheerleaders. You know, you can do this. Especially when it involves kids, I think it's a very heated topic, because as a mother, for your child, they are literally, it's your heart's most desire to do good by your children. And so and I think sometimes that translates into being perfect, but doing good does not necessarily mean being perfect. And our families, when they have shame or guilt that pop up during this process, it can really limit our success. So we really focus on, you know, we can do this. one step at a time, we're moving forward in the right direction, and then provide them with resources to help them really be successful, because relying on their home environment or their family or their friends is not really an option right now, because this is kind of a frontier. We're blazing a trail here.
Yeah, it could be quite isolating to start a whole new thing. Have you found ways to engage the patients into a peer-to-peer kind of connections?
Engagement is your specialty.
So with peer-to-peer interactions, one of the things that we built for the clinic was a social media group that is limited to just our patients in the practice and the providers and our dietitian. And that has been a great way to connect moms. The goal of that group is outlined on the first page when you sign up, knowing that it's not for medical advice, it's to create a positive environment, to connect with other families. We see things everywhere from recipes being shared to people saying, I'm going to order such and such vitamin from this company, who wants to share the shipping costs? And our mothers are coming together, they're meeting outside of the office when they find that they have children that have certain needs that are similar. And that has been a very great tool for building that sense of community. And I think along that line of the sense of community being very important for people being successful in change, one of the things that we try to focus on too is role modeling for our families with ourselves and our staff, making sure that, we're talking about lifestyle medicine here. We're not only talking the talk, but we're walking the walk. We're feeding our families the same way. We're letting them kind of opening their eyes too. We're telling them we've been there. We've been on standard American diets too and made that transition, and it wasn't easy, and here are the ways that it was easier for us as we moved along. So meeting people where they're at, coming from a place of not being judgmental, creating a safe environment for change, and really focusing on how that sense of community and connection is going to be the most powerful driving force to success, I think, is how we are able to really see change in our population.
Yeah, and getting the patients engaged and the mom and the dad engaged is really about kind of showing them what's happening inside the child's body sometimes, and that's where we really become teachers. Because sometimes they'll come to us, we don't have any concerns, we don't know what's going on, but their child is having a bowel movement once a week. And we go, oh, well, this is not optimal, and let's look into that, and let's see. And so sometimes it's more about let me show you what's happening in the child's body and where we can go from here.
I know in the pre-functional forum years, you guys had a meetup here with Dr. Burke and Dr. Holhouse for a long time. What do you feel like that connection played any role in you guys sort of forging ahead? And do you feel like what value did that connection provide in helping you step ahead of the rest of the program?
Yeah, that was huge for me, because I was very close to my previous practicing pediatricians, and so when I evolved into functional medicine, they didn't want that, and I felt very isolated, I felt very alone, and having other doctors in the community that were like-minded, I realized, no, it's not me, I'm not crazy. I have a tribe of people that see what I'm seeing, this chronic illness, and that we need to get to the root cause. And it was such an incredible, literally uplifted me every time we got together. And I would feel that way even going to the IFM conferences and coming back like, yes, I have a people, I have a community that I'm part of, and I can do this.
How useful is the functional medicine operating system to kind of organize your thoughts in this?
Yeah. I think it's very useful. Starting with the timeline, just thinking about a patient's history from preconception to the present can be very beneficial, showing the family where those forks in the road occurred, to help point out the underlying causes and the ATMs, or antecedents, triggers, and mediators for their symptoms. And the matrix also, it's a common language that we can all use as functional medicine providers, which makes it very helpful. I think over time, initially, as in teaching tools, especially when I'm working with students and residents, I have them fill out the timeline, I have them fill out the matrix. It's a more concrete way to get those functional medicine thought processes and wheels turning. when you're more familiar with it, that way of thinking becomes ingrained. And so I'll notice if we're consulting each other with a patient, I might have the matrix filled out and there's an area that's lacking, and I'll have Dr. Shirok's brain going, what about assimilation, right? And so initially I think they're very beneficial, and as a teaching tool especially, I have really used it a lot.
Mm-hmm. I do think too that the more complicated the patients get, which does naturally happen when you start practicing this medicine, it's really important to have organizational tools and things that you can lean on. We all have that experience where we get the patient, download before the appointment, and we go, oh my gosh, can I do this? Whoa. And just going back to those real core basics is powerful.
How have you found, inside the model, how have you found the wiggle room to be able to spend the time that you need to explain some of these different concepts?
We bill based on time. And so time with us is kind of productive time for us. And that's an important piece when you're taking insurance and working with the model that we're working with.
What's the average length of an appointment, and how do you know ahead of time how long an appointment's going to be, and then how do you organize the waiting room to not go really long the whole time?
Yeah, it's definitely been a work in progress, converting from a conventional schedule template to a functional medicine template. And the hospital and the administration have been very open to this, because when you bill for time, it just kind of all works out. But for a new patient, we usually need about two hours, and especially if they're really complicated. I mean, most of the patients that we're getting at this point are referral based. They've been to many different doctors. They've got multiple complex conditions, and so that does take time. And lab follow-ups and things where there's kind of a lot to go over and really start the movement happening, we would take about an hour.
Does the hospital system has the hospital system got to a point where they recognize that you're good at chronic disease and they send people in your direction?
I would say yes, at a community level, definitely. We are getting referrals from family doctors who are conventional trained in some of their more complex chronic disease patients.
Our goal here at the Evolution of Medicine is to make it easy for you to replicate these types of practices. As you can see, they are working in all places around the country, and they're absolutely necessary. And so if you're excited about building the practice of the future, we have a number of resources for you at the Evolution of Medicine. And one of the resources that we've worked with for a couple of years is Andrea Nakayama. It used to be Holistic Nutrition Lab, now the Functional Nutrition Alliance. If you're a practitioner, if you want to hire someone to do the nutrition and lifestyle coaching, if you want to actually do it yourself, Andrea has built a program that allows you to do it. She's been doing this for so many years. She's developed a way for all practitioners to have a common language so that they can work together. And so if you want to find out more about Andrea's program, go to goevomed.com/HNL. That's goevomed.com/HNL. Download the free report and find out more about her training. We're really excited to partner with people who can make it easy for us to evolve medicine that much quicker, and Andrea is a great solution. So if you've been following the news, what is not a surprise is there has been an absolute explosion in chronic pediatric illness. And in order to adapt to that chronic pediatric illness, we need practices that are capable of dealing with it. Many practices that are doing it in different ways: hospital setting, private practice, direct primary care, package model. If these models speak to you and you want to build this kind of practice for the future, you can see that there is a ton of demand for this type of care. And we at the Evolution of Medicine are here to help you do that. So if you're interested in building this type of practice, but you don't know where to start, we can help you, whether it be lead generation, education at scale, how to build an efficient practice, all the things that you need to do to run this type of practice, we can help with. Go to goevomed.com/book-call. You can see the details below. Book-call. You can have a call with one of our program specialists. They'll help to find out what is the vision for your practice and set a plan to get you there as quickly as possible. We need practitioners like you to build the practice of the future. We hope you'll join us at the Evolution of Medicine practitioner community. Thanks so much for watching this episode of the Functional Forum. It has been so great to see so much good news happening in the field of pediatrics, where every day it seems that the numbers of chronic illness is going up and up. This is a movement that is capable of redressing the balance. Join us next month for Prescribing Lifestyle Medicine. We're going to be in London for the first course ever endorsed by the Royal College of Physicians to teach lifestyle medicine. Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, Dr. Ayan Panja, and Dr. Michael Ash will be there, as well as all of the new doctors that are taking on lifestyle medicine in the UK. It's a worldwide movement. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.